Hello and welcome to The Canadian Wants to Know. On this episode, I'm speaking to a hotel manager in the city of Frankfurt, the financial center of Germany. We will discuss the current state of the industry in times of Corona. Many industries have been affected during this time, but the hotel industry in particular. He will tell us about his thoughts on what he thinks the future of the industry looks like, as well as to provide some tips for those who are interested in joining the hotel business. Also, let's go. So I'm in the city of Frankfurt here with
Lasse, hello.
Lasse. He's a hotel manager in the city, and he's going to tell us a little bit about why he got into the industry and for how long he's been working in it.
All right, I started my first hotel job pretty much straight out of school, just working as a waiter in London. Wanted to get some experience abroad, and afterwards went back to Germany and did my apprenticeship in hotels here, or in one hotel, and went straight back to London afterwards. Why did I choose hotels? I'm still not quite sure after all these years, because obviously in hotels, especially in the early years, when you work in service or in reception, it's long hours, it's unsociable hours, but it's fun. In the end, it's fun, and so many people in the hospitality industry will tell you that with all the drawbacks that they may experience in their private life, they just can't get away. They just love the atmosphere, they love the people, both guests, but also the people that you meet working there, which are often from all over the world. So it is still a great place to work. Even now that I've moved on, worked in reception for a while, but now work obviously in the finance management. So even there, you still feel a different atmosphere, I think, in a hotel than, I don't know, in one of these banks. Not that I have worked in any of them, but I assume it would feel a lot different than in a hotel.
What do you think are some of the main benefits of working in this industry?
I mean, there's very direct, tangible benefits, of course, that if you work for a chain of hotels, you often get travel benefits of staying in other hotels of your company at a cheaper rate, but also less direct benefits, maybe that you have the world available to you. You know, if you do not want to work in your own country anymore, as long obviously as you speak the right language, you can go pretty much anywhere. You can work wherever you like. You can work at a beach resort somewhere in the tropics, or you can work in a busy city hotel with business guests. It's all there. It's all available.
So you mentioned that there are also some downsides to the industry. Could you expand on that?
Sure. I mean, in a 24-hour industry, quite naturally, somebody has to be there for 24 hours. You know, somebody has to be there at night. Somebody has to be there on the weekends, early in the morning, late in the evening. So it's not necessarily the most sociable job if you are in one of the positions, say in service or in reception, that actually have to be manned throughout the day and night. Yes, it can get difficult. It can be difficult to make plans with friends, with family. You may not be free on the same evening. You may not be able to plan ahead more than a week or 2 weeks until you get your schedule. So yes, you will most likely miss out on something, many things even.
Could you tell us a little bit about what changes you've noticed in the last 10 years in your industry?
Sure. I mean, 10 years is it's a long time, I think, in most industries. So in a way, hotels, I suppose, have always worked in a certain way and will always work in a certain way. But of course, there's changes with the online world, I guess, being the most obvious. You know, most bookings or a lot of bookings now, depending on what your business mix is, you know, what type of guests you have, now come online through websites that just resell, you know, that don't actually offer any product, that just aggregate the hotels all over the world. So a lot of our bookings and anyone's bookings now will come through that. And there's also the review culture now online, the name I shall not mention, but I think we all know. You know, it's not just the one big website, but reviews are now, you know, they're attached to all the aggregate sites,
Yes.
and they're everywhere, wherever you shop online. And that's a big change, I think. You know, that the feedback doesn't necessarily just come to you via letter after 2 days. You know, dear manager, we have had this issue, or we've had this experience. It's online, possibly while the guest is still there. You know, instead of calling down to reception, they're writing a review online. And it also obviously opens up the whole industry to a certain level of abuse. You know, maybe a disgruntled guest will write a review that's not actually fair.
Yeah.
A competitor might do the same, or a competitor might write positive reviews for themselves. I think that's still not quite at its final point. I think the industry is still coming to grasp with it. So we'll see where that goes. What may have changed a little more probably is the type of people, or the origin of guests that you get. You know, with international travel becoming more and more of a normal thing. You know, with cheap airlines flying people all over the world, with more developing countries now being at a point where mass tourism is completely normal. So yeah, that's again, it's a change that really isn't a change, because it's still guests that check into a hotel. But of course, especially with other cultures, people from further away, there is things that you have to adapt to.
Okay, so let's talk about COVID.
Oh yes.
How
could we not?
Exactly. How has COVID affected your industry in particular?
I think hospitality, travel, tourism is probably one of the most affected industries of them all. So yes, we're feeling it very strongly, and we expect to feel it for a long time. There is the basic operational impact that now, you know, you have to space your tables further apart, and you have little markers on the floor and plexiglass in front of the reception and those kind of things. But obviously the biggest impact is the business is just going down, and it hasn't so far recovered to a point where everyone even 2-3 months ago thought it would be. You know, Frankfurt is undoubtedly a business city. You got all the big banks over there, you got the European Central Bank over here, and business is just slow. A lot of companies are now doing the whole working from home and teleconferencing and suspending all business travel till the end of the year and possibly further. So that definitely hits the hotels in this city and in any other business destination. Lufthansa is the biggest airline, well, in Germany, but particularly in Frankfurt Airport. They have now said that in quarter 4, in the last 3 months of 2020, they may reach maybe 20 to 30% of their capacity from last year, when they, even in August, they were still aiming at 50. So that's going down. The Messe in Frankfurt, the big trade show venue, has now announced they will not host any trade shows in the first quarter of 2021. So there's no trade shows up till March, the end of March at least, and then we'll see how the rest goes. Now there's corona figures spiking again everywhere. More countries are declared risk areas, including some areas in Germany, including Frankfurt.
The city,
So people are not necessarily going to want to travel here for business or leisure, and people from here may not be able to travel where they want to. People from other countries may not be able to get into the country if they want to travel. So I think we're nowhere near the end. I'm not sure I would even say we're at the peak.
Now my next question is, if I were to transition into your industry, what would be the steps that I would have to take?
Okay, I mean, Germany is very big on its apprenticeship programs, you know, which some other countries don't have at all. You would just start working in the job and be trained and do your way up. I did the classic German apprenticeship, where you work in this case in a hotel for 3 years. You have some educational parts on the side. It's a vocational college that you go to a few weeks a year, but mostly it's working on the job. So I think for most hotel jobs in Germany, they would expect something like that. There's also hotel schools. They're mostly a thing, I think, in Switzerland and France. Hotel management schools as well, which to me is always it's a business school, but do you really know a hotel afterwards? I'm not convinced, but I don't want to offend anyone who's been to any hotel management schools. I'm sure they teach a lot of important things there. I'm not sure I would employ them in reception or service afterwards, but that's probably not their goal anyway. So generally, I think definitely for a younger person, yes, do the apprenticeship. It's 3 years. It's not easy, but then you have it and you have something solid. And even or especially if you go abroad within the industry, people know that if you have done the German apprenticeship, you're solid. You know what you're doing.
What do you think the apprenticeship most prepared you for once you started working full time?
I think the biggest advantage, apart from just stealing you for the the physical labor that it involves sometimes, and the hours and all of that, but in long term, I think to understand the relationship inside the hotel between different departments, different areas, because in the apprenticeship you will go and work in every area pretty much. You will work in housekeeping and clean the rooms and clean the toilets and clean the beds, and then later you'll clean the plates, and then you'll serve the plates, and then you'll check in a guest into a room, and then bit by bit you learn the whole business of the hotel, all the operations, and how what one department does influences another. And I think that's the biggest advantage, even and especially when you then rise to management ranks later.
So I want to thank Lasse for the interview today. And we have one final question for the audience. What is that question?
If you could stay in a luxury hotel anywhere you like, which hotel would you choose? What area would you choose?
Exactly. So that's the question. You can leave your answers in the comments below. Also, bis nächstes Mal.